For those that are already good in web development and that will see this video, I want to point out, because there's always been argument in this area of HTML, CSS being programming languages. HTML is not a programming language. CSS is not a programming language. HTML is a markup language. It enables you to put anything in the browser, and then CSS helps you to design it. Hi, I'm Sanmi. I'm the CTO, Degree of Tech Solution. Welcome to Center-ECD TV. So this morning, I'm going to be talking to you about the different area of technology, or tech in short, as we all know it. So we have two main parts here. We have the coding part, and we also have the non-coding part. My own job this morning is to tell you the different jobs available in the coding areas of technology. So as I'm mentioning them, I'm also going to be outlining the skills involved for you to be able to get those jobs. You understand? Okay. First of all, since we're talking about tech skills that involve coding, what is coding? Coding is an act of writing instructions or programs that computers understand, or for short, we can say an act of telling the computer what to do. You understand? So in school those days, they told us that coding is just to write instruction, and the combination of one or two instructions makes up a program, and then two or more programs makes up the software. So you see, everything still boils down to the coding. So what is now this coding to the barest minimum level? It's just the combination of different numbers, alphabets, and symbols. Those are the things you put together to just form an instruction. And then from there, you go up down to software. So you see, so different areas, different jobs area now in coding with tech. First one, I'm going to outline computer programmer, or let's just call it a coder. Yes. So computer programmer is just, like I defined coding, is just somebody that writes instruction that the computer understands. I'm not talking about web development and all those things, just the lowest point. Somebody that writes codes that the computer understands. So what we now want to start looking at it further, we'll now start seeing the different areas of development or of coding. So all of them come under the branch of computer programmer. You understand? Okay, so under this computer programming now, we now have different areas. I will come back to that. Okay, so I want to also mention a second part after computer programming. Second part should be software engineering. Nowadays, people confuse computer programmer to be a software engineer and then software engineer to be a computer programmer. No, computer programmer is just somebody that writes codes that run on the computer. A software engineer is the person that outlines the processes of developing a working system or a working software. So it's beyond coding. For example, the developers are under the software engineer, the product designer, UI, UX guys, and all those things. They are under the software engineer. The software engineer is the one that talks about the tools they will use in developing the software, or the resources they need to put into consideration, why we are using these tools and why we are not using these tools. So they outline everything needed to build a working system. So you see, it's different from the computer programmer. So those are just like the two main parts. Then before we now enter people like IT managers or information technology managers, or we enter cloud computing, people that manage servers and the rest. But let's just focus on these two: computer programmers and software engineers. So I'm going to be breaking the computer programming down into different areas. We have web developers, or you can say web programmers. I like using developers. We have web developers, we have desktop developers, and then we have mobile developer. Mobile, I mean mobile app. Yeah. And then we have embedded system developers. I'm going to start from the top again. Web developer, we have desktop developers, we have mobile app developers, and then we have embedded system developers. I'm going to explain them one by one. So who is a web developer? A web developer is somebody that writes software that runs in the browser. That's the lowest point of understanding. You write code that runs in your browser. I'm sure you guys know what browsers are now. We have the Opera Mini, we have the Chrome, we have Brave, we have so many other browsers. So they are the ones that write applications that run inside the web application, at least so to say, in code. I will still mention some other things that does not involve that. So meaning in web development now, if they are writing code that runs inside the browser, we also that whole process is divided into two parts. We have the front-end developers and we have the back-end developers. So from the name front-end, from the other name to back-end. So what is front-end development? Front-end developers are the ones that write codes that run inside the browser specifically for the users to see. You see the added part, for the users to see. Because if you say that runs on the browser, that means you're just saying web developer as a whole. But the front-end guys write codes that runs in the browser that the user interacts with through your mouse or your keyboard or through visuals. Let's put it like that for people with a visual impairment. You understand? So they use languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They use it to write stunning UIs, user interface. That's what UI means. Stunning user interface. So that, for example, now let's take Facebook, for example. When you want to use Facebook, you know there are buttons that you click, there are links that you click, there are drop down, something you click that, and then you have more options and all that. Those things are done by the front-end developers. The colors, Facebook is like blue and white and some mixture of grays. Those things are done by the front-end developers. Now, but they are writing all those designs in code. Get that? Understand that? They write that in code. There's another area I'm supposed to mention before that. They call them the UI UX developers. But I mean, they are not under tech skills with coding because they don't use code for user interfaces. They use software. What is UI UX? It's just a UI UX designer is somebody that creates the application in design format without coding. For example, the way I can explain it for you to understand, like a layman, is like designing it in picture images format for you to see that, okay, oh, this is how the login of this application will be. This is how the registration page will be. This is how for example, Facebook, this is how the wall will be. This is how it's going to look when I want to post an image. You understand? So, but they have them in image format so you can see from page 1 to page 2 and all that. And then the user experience guys are the one that just determines, or they make sure that the experience you get from the usage of that application is interesting. Everything becomes easy. So yeah, that is it. So, but that one is under non-tech skills. So let's come back to the front end guys. So they use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for front end. For those that are already good in web development that will see this video, I want to point out, because there's always been argument in this area of HTML, CSS being programming languages. HTML is not a programming language. CSS is not a programming language. HTML is a markup language. It enables you to put anything in the browser, and then CSS helps you to design it. The way I used to explain it to my students at Degree Hub is that you look at HTML like, let's say, if you know Notepad on your system, we look at it as Notepad, only with the exception of you are able to add images and links. And then you look at CSS like your Photoshop that will help you to be able to design what you've written with Notepad. Let's look at it like that. So HTML just helps you write and put images and links on your browser, and then CSS helps you design it. So they are not programming languages. One is a markup language, hypertext markup language, HTML. One is cascading style sheets, CSS. Now, JavaScript, on the other hand, is a full-fledged programming language. It was written as a scripting language to run inside the browser. But that's a whole explanation for another day. Let's leave that. So all you need to know is front-end developers use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to interpret the design that the UI UX designer have designed in picture format. They will now create that UI using code. So that's the difference. Now, under front-end, there are also frameworks that makes work easy, like React, we have Angular, we have Ionic. There are so many little ones coming up, but I encourage people to learn JavaScript more because frameworks will change as time goes on. So that's that for front end. Don't forget we're still under web development. Now let's talk about back end. A back end engineer or developer is somebody that writes the logic between the front end and the database system. This can be arguable, but let's leave it like that for the beginners. That's, for example, on Facebook, when you want to post a text or an image, once you click send, it goes. You don't know where it goes to, but you shall know that your friends will see it, Abby. It goes to somewhere called a database. Database. Let me see how to explain this now. It's just anywhere you store your information so that you can visit it later. So it's like your cupboard where you keep stack of your clothes. When you come tomorrow, you can pick your red shirt and wear. So it's like storing your information in stats or in table format or any format. You understand? So your friends can see it and all that. So the backend engineer is the one that writes codes that pick that information and stores that into database. They write codes with either PHP, C#, JavaScript, like I mentioned, Python. Yeah, I know we have plenty of people that love Python. And let me see some other ones. Right now, they also do that with Dart and some C++ and some other languages. But the most popular ones are JavaScript, Python, PHP, and C#. I'm not arranging them in order of importance, so I'm just mentioning them. Okay, so they use a programming language with either a relational database system or a NoSQL or non-relational database system. They combine the two and put some security in place and make sure that they release something called API, Application Programming Interface. That is what they release to the front-end developer. So that's like the communication bridge in between the two phases. Front end, we have the API, and then we have the back end, which is the server, the database, and the rest. So the application programming interface, which is the API, is what serves as the communication hub for the two. So the front end guy make request to the API, which the back end guy have created, and then the database engine sends it to the front end and blah blah blah. That's just the difference. So one deals with what the user sees, one deals with how it works. The logical part, I love that. The logical part, what you do not see. So that's that for web development. And so I know under the non-coding skill, they will tell you some tools that involve you don't need to write code to create a website. Yeah, those ones are on one side. And then we now have the desktop developers. These ones are developers that write application that runs as installable software on your desktop or on your system, on your computer. So imagine when you download Microsoft Word, when you downloaded your PowerPoint, or when you downloaded that game, you remember you installed it. Yes, those are desktop applications. They also have front end and back end. But majorly, for a while, we've been looking at it as one. But mostly, most of the people that write the UI are also the people that write the back end for most desktop applications. So we just look at it as one for now. As time goes on, I'm sure they are differentiating it. So they just write application that runs on your desktop devices. They also use programming languages like C#, Python, your C++, your C, most especially for game. They used to use this new one now, Rust. That's for desktop developers. Then for mobile app developers, they write applications that run on your mobile app. For example, they're the one that created your WhatsApp, people that created your Gmail account, your Gmail app, not account, sorry, and then people that created anything that is installable on your mobile phone. You understand? So it's mobile developers that created it. They have different technology stack for that. Oh, stack might be too big. Different technologies or coding concepts. For that, let's just go with that one. For that, so for mobile app, they have native and cross-platform development. I'm not saying front and back end now. Native and cross-platform development. Native means that they are writing the application that runs specifically for that operating system. Oh, this is wide. I'm going to have to explain what operating system is. I'm sure you know your iOS and you know your Android, right? So iOS is an operating system, which is Apple, and then Android is an operating system from Google. They have other ones from Hawaii and all those other companies. So it's just, I think that's the best way I can explain your operating system to a layman. So native applications are the ones that they created for that specific operating system, meaning that Android app that they created for an Android device will not run on a iOS app, iOS phone or operating system. The one they wrote for iOS 2 will not run on Android. The one they wrote for Windows Phone will not run on any of those. It's just specifically for that operating system. That's why we call them native development. It is native to the operating system. So, and then that's advantages. It also has disadvantages. I'll come back to that. Now, let's now look at cross-platform. I'm sure you're already guessing. It's like when you write an application that runs on all operating systems, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and all that. So, for native development, they have people use Java Android or Java, and more now. That's for Android. Now, I'm mentioning on Android, and more now. People use Kotlin more now for it. Some people, some bad guys still use C++. Yes, some bado, they still use C++. But now, let's now look at under iOS. They use Swift. Those days they used to use Objective-C. But now Swift is more prominent for iOS devices. And then for Windows Phone, Windows devices, they use C#, C++, VB.NET. Sometimes in the middle they use F#, but that one is more for functional programming. But let's leave that aside. So that is it. So how do you know which one to pick? Why should I just focus on native development or for cross-platform development? I think even people that want to build apps too should also pay attention here, because they all have their advantages and their disadvantages. Let's look at native, for example. Meaning if you are building an app specifically for an operating system, it means you are able to leverage or use all the resources specifically for that operating system. You don't have to think of writing for this one. What if it works for this one, it doesn't work for this one? You know, it works. You'll be able to even communicate directly to the hardware of the device, since it runs that operating system. That's one of the main advantages. That's why things like games are built with native technology. Things like things that make use of serious CPU load. Most of the CPU cores, they write them with native development. So using the Java and the Kotlin for Android, and using Swift for iOS. One of the advantages is that you don't have to have different programmers for different operating systems, because nowadays you see that the same app you have on Android, you also have it on iOS and on Windows Phone. So now you don't have to have 3 sets of developers. You just have one that writes that application once, and then it runs on all those operating systems. That's like the main advantage. But if you know that your application is going to be doing things that will take so much CPU resources, processor, I think they can use the two of them interchangeably. You have to use native development. You understand? So it depends on the kind of application you want to build. Me, for example, I'm a native developer and I'm also a cross-platform developer. Depending on anyone, I can use anyone, but I'm more proficient with cross-platform development. So for cross-platform development, we have languages like Dart and frameworks like Flutter to create cross-platform applications. We also have the one that Microsoft created called MAUI, M-A-U-I, MAUI. It also runs on anywhere. If you build an application, you can run it as a website, you can run it as a software on your system, you can run it as a mobile app, you can run it, in fact, for Flutter, theoretically, Flutter can also run on firmwares. What are firmwares? Those are applications that run on your devices like your router. So, yeah. So you choose. So that's that for mobile development. And then I think one of the last one I mentioned was embedded system. Okay. So what is embedded system? I'm going to start with an example before I explain what it is. I don't know if you've seen these guys. For example, if you are in Benin, there is a way. There are this set of people that collect revenue from bus and taxi drivers. They use a small device. That device is not a phone. It's not a mobile phone. It's a custom-made device for that purpose. Those are the kind of things we call embedded system, or your POS system. You remember that POS one that you use your ATM card for? Those are embedded system. Or you decided to to change how an hardware works by including your own form of hardware. Those are embedded systems. And for them to work, you have to create a small mini OS, operating system or firmware, to run on that device. You understand? So this kind of thing is common with people that do robotics. Robotics doesn't mean people that do human being robot. Do robotics does things that run things by themselves. You can use them to automate tasks, but just they are physical, and then they are mechanical too. So you program them. So the people that do those kind of programming are called embedded developers. They write mostly with C and C++ and sometimes Java. Okay, so that's another field. It's not too common in Nigeria, but I think Lagos is trying, and Abuja, so you might want to check that out. So that's for embedded development under computer programming and software engineering. So let's look at some other fields. They are very big, so I'm just going to just go into them briefly. We also have security engineers. These ones are like they are also related to cyber security engineers. They're almost like the same thing, but cyber security is just involved with, since you have the word cyber, mostly online and stuff. But security engineer generally encompasses all of them, making sure that your resources are secure, making sure that they don't have backdoors and then loops or spaces for attacks to happen. Even when attacks happen, they are the one that can quickly make sure that they block the space and they recover. So from the name security engineers, that's their work. There's also a bit of coding in that, especially when you have to write bash files, you have to communicate with share. You can Google all those ones. It's too wide. Okay, so and then let's look at cloud engineers. Cloud engineers are those ones that deal majorly with servers, like big servers. When you say servers now, we don't look at servers as the way they used to have them those days, when you would like, you have Windows Server or you have this one. So it's more wild now. Like for example, like Linux systems, and yes, some people still use Windows Server. So these cloud engineers deal with people like AWS, Amazon Web Services, people that does CDN provision, content delivery network. You know, server doesn't have to be that. It's just where you put your website. It can be repository for files. In fact, from the name server, it means, imagine where you are going to eat. Somebody brings the food to you. So they serve you the food you are eating. So server is just something that serves you the resources you need when you need it. Once you ask for it, they give it to you. So it can be for website files, it can be for video files, it can be for images, it can be for anything. So these cloud engineers are the ones that manage those things, including databases and all that. It's very wide. You can Google it. I can't go deeply into that. And then we have people that they call database developers. Remember when I was mentioning backend, I said these backend engineers are people that use both programming language and database to communicate and create API for the front-end guys. So they also take control of a bit of security and all that. But database developer is specifically for database systems. The funny part is database system can be anything. It could even be a bulk of your Excel sheet that is many, but they shall manage your database. But if you want to look at it technically, there are people that technically manage and transact on your database systems. Example, your relational database systems like your MySQL. Let's just say general SQL database system like MySQL, Oracle. I'm sure you guys know that there was one time that Oracle was raining. I'm sure they still use them down in the bank. They have Cosmos DB. They have they have Cassandra, but that one to have a little bit of NoSQL. They have there's this one I'm trying to remember. It's very common with MySQL. We have MariaDB and more than when I remember I mentioned that. So this one uses SQL language, structured query language. That's why we put them under coding, because you have to write programming languages. You have to write code to communicate with it. You understand? So the coding is SQL, structured query language. Then we also have non-SQL database systems. We have things like, we call them NoSQL database. They use, I don't want to explain the full concept now because you might not understand until you are into it. But okay, the difference is relational database system or SQL systems, they use table format to store information. Meaning, imagine you have your table, different columns, and then you have different rows. So you can have like my name, my age, where I stay, and some other this thing on one row. But this NoSQL format, they don't store anything in table format. They store it anywhere, file format, or any kind of way. But they have their mechanism of pulling those information together. One of the examples of NoSQL database is MongoDB and most cloud databases. So why are we doing this thing? Is to get people involved more in technology in this country. For example, I believe that if a country wants to really grow, they have to leverage technology. Their citizens have to be very, very good with tech, no matter the area. It doesn't have to be coding area, it can be the non-coding area. So far, they are just very proficient with technology. So now we are digging on. Our own job is to train you and get you ready. We build software too, that's fine, but that's not the essence of this one. This one is to tell you that we can train you to be any of this field. You can become a computer programmer, software engineer with a lot of plenty of years of experience. We can train you to become security engineer. Just mention it, especially in the coding field. Just mention it. We have students now that are already working for big companies that are receiving their small dollars and thousands. Of course. So you understand that. We also offer online training. In fact, that's where you see my face more. Most of my classes are online, so we can give you online training anywhere you are in the world. So just for you to register, you pay your small thing, and then we kick off with Zoom. Our lowest course, I will not say lowest course now, like the one that have the shortest span, the shortest period, is computer appreciation. Yes, that one is 3 months, right? Computer appreciation will teach you that you never touched computer before for your life. You don't know what it is. We'll teach you what it is. We'll teach you how to use it. You know, that kind of thing. We'll show you where the power button is. Some of you don't even know what the power button. Anyways, we'll show you how to put it on. We'll show you how to put it off. We'll show you how to do many things. So the thing will not be looking like abadabidi and jargons in your eye. And then from there, if you now want, so for example, now if you want to become a software developer, you can't just come and say we should turn you to a software developer. No, and you don't have to use computer. No, you first of all start from there. And our fees are very cheap. I won't say it here so that some of you will not run away. When you can call the number on the screen and then we'll contact you. So thank you. Don't forget, I'm Sanmi Amos. My public name is Amospikins. So thank you very much.